Okay. Should we just go?
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our third episode of the Shift PanelCast. And thank you so much for joining us. You'll also see that we have a new format this week, which is more webinar style. We've done this just to make it a little bit more relaxed and a bit more inclusive for the whole panel to join in with the questions. So if you do have questions for our panelists, please feel free to go down the bottom of your screen. There's a chat section. You can either ask the panelists all a question, or you can put the question out as well to all the attendees.
Can I just say, can we just, before you run, just to apologise for technical difficulties there, people? I can see that everyone's coming into it right now, which is fantastic. So we apologise for that. But you haven't missed anything. We've been waiting for you.
Yeah, thanks for bearing with us on that one. There's you can ask the questions down in the bottom corner. Also in the top corner, you can either look at speaker view, which means that one of us will come up when we're speaking, or you can go to gallery view and see all four of us. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Hayley Mason. I am the founder and MD of an events agency based in Sydney, Australia. I co-created the Shift with my business partner, CT, who is also in the panel. We found ourselves with a bit more time in the last month. So we thought we'd put our creative brains on. And our purpose behind the PanelCast is to shift mindsets for a positive change, specifically within the sports, entertainment, and events industry. So over the next few months, we are going to discuss with the greatest minds in our industry about how to transition and plan for the next 6, 12 to 18 months and relaunch events in whatever form they are. So just to do a bit of a recap for those of you who haven't been on the PanelCast before, week 1, CT explained how we have gone into an L-shaped recession. Now, his explanation of this was basically a great way for us to understand how we can actually plan for the next 6 to 18 months. L-shaped recessions have happened before. We haven't had the coronavirus before, but this is giving us time to sit and get our thoughts together and be able to plan. We also had Taz from Black Dog Institute. He came on to talk about mental health and how to look after your employees and your colleagues and make sure that for the rest of the year and moving forward, those people come out in a really positive way and that you guys have a better relationship with them. We also had Jamie Barrington, who was the CFO for the NRL Dragons. He talked about managing the largest pause in the history of his sporting code. Mm-hmm. And Nikki Vassiliadis, she is the content queen from Red Bull Racing Formula One. She discussed e-events and how events could form some level of hybrid tech to live events. And she also discussed some new technologies. And week 2 last year, we talked more in depth around the effects that international travel restrictions would have for the Australian events industry. We also saw an opportunity there that although we may not be getting international acts and international artists or athletes coming over, there is a massive opportunity for Australian artists and Australian sports to take that place over the coming months. We got some great insights from Jeff. So Jeff was from TEG and also Andreas from Reebok and CT around the future of innovation and how key communities and relationships are going to be. And we opened up more questions on sponsorship and brands and their relationship to events and how our business is so heavily reliant on them. Moving forward today, our topic is going to be the current events and campaigns and a look at opportunities to build on current successes. Sponsorship, we're going to take a wider look into partnerships in the industry between brands and events in the long term. For those of you who have sent in questions, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Some of them we've been able to incorporate into today's discussion, and some we have put on hold, and we've got a great schedule coming up in the coming months, and some of those questions are relevant to those where we delve deeper into different topics. So I will introduce you to our panelists for tonight. So CT, who I said was my business partner, he is an events and sports marketing expert specializing in innovation and creativity. He's got 20 years on the brand and client side and specializes as well in this creative direction and design. He'll talk about the trend, how to think outside the box, and how to create assets out of your events and campaigns in the next 12 to 18 months. We also have Jen here. Hi, Jen. Jen is the Associate Director and Sponsorship Partner of Optus. So for those of you who tuned in last week, you'll remember that the panelists absolutely loved the Good Day a Day campaign. And we were very fortunate enough to ask Jen, and she accepted our offer to come on the panel today. So Jen's also worked in Foxtel and Sky Sports and has got a huge history in sponsorship in the sporting and live entertainment. And last but not least, we have Michael Menzies, who is the founder of Remember Creative. Michael's got over 15 years experience in design and marketing and is a strategically focused creative with extensive experience in the digital space. So Michael has worked with agencies such as Ogilvy, Saatchi & Saatchi, and is now the principal of Remember. And he's going to bring tonight some really good insights on what other industries are doing in the creative space. So we will get started. So my first question is actually to Michael. We've had a few people contact us and asking about what other industries are affected, how they're affected. So can you explain to us how you have seen the digital advertising be affected?
Yeah, so I might split the answer into two sections, if you don't mind. I think there's the business effect, and two, there's how that's affecting digital advertising. If you look across the spectrum of businesses that we deal with, some are barely being touched, while others are being extremely restricted in what they can do. Others obviously have hit hard times. So if you look at, say, the travel industry as an example, the restrictions that have been placed on that industry have made it very difficult for those businesses to trade. And then if you look at, say, businesses that we deal with in the IT space, they've become considered to some degree an essential service. And so they've had to really ramp up what they're doing in terms of communication with their customers. So what does that look like in terms of the digital environment or the digital advertising environment? I think it's really dependent on where you are. I mean, if you take a look at someone like Optus, and obviously we're going to talk about them a little bit later on, you can imagine that they're amplifying what they're doing from a spend point of view. It'll be focused very much on brand, I would imagine. And then if you look at the travel industry, a lot of what they're doing right now is really probably trying to reassure customers that their money, future travel options are open to them. So it becomes more about not only a brand communication, but also very much an informative one. So I think that's the kind of spectrum you're looking at the moment.
Yeah, so I think we have touched on in the past about in the last couple of weeks and probably moving forward for the next couple of weeks is that people don't want to be sold to, right? And brands are actually moving towards more community and relationship and actually finding out what the consumers need. So are you finding the needs and wants of consumers different to what... Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
I don't know whether it's just me, but I'm losing you.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yep,
you're back.
Yeah. Okay.
Try that one more time.
So what I was saying is that in the last few weeks, what we've spoken about as well is that can you hear me still?
Yep.
Yeah. And so the brands and events as a whole, everyone stopped selling. People just want community and they want to feel connected to something, but they don't want to be sold. And are you finding that in the digital space with your other clients?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, our advice to almost across the board is, at this moment in time, let's not try and sell anything. I mean, if you're in an environment where products are still moving, then just they're going to move in their own right. For every other business at the moment, we're really trying to be empathetic to where the audience is. And for each business, again, that's different. But it's trying to understand what effects this may have had on their income, on their family situation, health, whatever it might be, and build small touch points that show that empathy, but also give them inspiration. I mean, you talked about positivity in your entrance. We've really been trying to sort of say to people, these are your options going forward in the next 6 months or whatever it might be. In the travel, again, as an example, this is what you can look forward to. Don't worry about what's happened. We can't change it. So, that's very much the approach that we're taking across the board.
Yeah. So last week, our panelists, we were talking about some great campaigns that had come out, and we talked about the G'day a Day campaign. So Jen, can you tell us a bit more about that campaign and how the G'day a Day came about?
Yeah, sure. I lost you very briefly there, but I think that was just a recap on the background of the campaign, how it came about. Was that the question?
Yes.
Great. So firstly, thank you for having me. It's great to be here and already kind of enjoying this discussion. I think you guys have touched on it already, but we are absolutely at any one point in time, there's kind of 20, 30 areas of the business sending out comms to customers. So when something like COVID hits, communicate with our customers what's happening. So the brief actually came out of a kind of agile tiger team, so to speak, that were put together to manage that and to manage everything that our business was saying about COVID, about how we're supporting people, and managing our tone of voice and managing what we're saying out there in market. So the first phase of that was very much functional. It was, how can our customers contact us because our service centers are closed? How are we supporting people going through hardship? Once we kind of got those basics in place, we moved into a bit more over and above initiatives, let's say. So we announced 3 months free for healthcare workers. And then once that landed and that went down really well, and we thought, let's just play in the brand space and see what happens. So it absolutely wasn't a traditional campaign briefing. We thought it's worth a test. We'll do an MVP approach. If we get slammed for it, we pull back and we stick with the functional comms. So we threw a 24-hour brief out to a couple of agencies, and this one landed on the desk. But I mean, I was telling the guys earlier, when it arrived, I'd actually just written myself a COVID achievement list of things I wanted to do, and one was to actually make sure I'm connecting with people, all the people I haven't had time to speak to recently, and now we have time, so let's make the most of it. And then this landed on my desk, and I thought, it's so simple, it's what people are doing anyway, and it has the opportunity to be really uplifting, and the brand just slots in there naturally without us having to force Optus down people's throats. So we did a quick turnaround. We did one piece, we put it out to market to see how it would fly, and it seemed to go down really well. And I think people are craving positive, uplifting content, and I think the beauty of using talent, celebrities, sports.
I think we've lost Jen.
Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we got you.
We've got you back.
Am I back?
Yeah, so we got you from
sorry.
the beauty of using talent and sports people.
That's my Optus network.
Everyone's network at the moment.
Yeah, you just get an insight to these people, and I think it pulls everyone onto a level playing field, and everybody's going through the same thing together, and that's what we keep hearing. We're all in this together, and there's no better way of demonstrating that than a multi-millionaire iconic sports person doing the exact same things you and I are doing at home. Yeah. So that's where the campaign landed, and we made a commitment to get a video out every day for the rest of the month. So we're now on campaign.
That's pretty full on. We're trying to do one a week.
Yeah, I think on that, Jen, like one of the key, some of the things that we loved about it and why we all sort of were drawn to it where obviously we've talked about, and we talked about in the past 2 weeks as well, is that factor of not selling. So it wasn't about that. But the big thing was that it was encouraging that connection, and I think at the moment it's this connection that we're all really craving, where as people and as consumers, like we're craving to connect with our friends and our family. And so it was really, encouraging that. And it was also, I guess, in a very clever way, connecting, and the whole connection part with the product offering, I think, as well. But obviously on the mental health side of things too is just really important. So I think it just hit on a few marks.
Yeah.
So I was just going to say, from a business point of view, I think anyone listening who is kind of considering how they might bring a campaign to life, what Jen said there was just so valuable, in the sense that they took a really lean, agile approach to it. They made it effectively an MVP, trialed it in the market to see what the market's reaction was. And I think the other side of the equation is a lot of the feedback we're getting at the moment from customers is they're saying, I'm concerned about saying X, Y, or Z because what if I offend somebody? And I think there is an element of that. You have to be careful. There's a line not to be crossed. But at the same time, I think at the moment we're so bombarded about terrible news that if you can bring some fun and some joy to this whole experience, I think the audience is going to react well.
Yeah. Michael, you actually, we had a conversation yesterday, and you were telling me something about one of your clients in the travel industry and what they did. And I thought that was a beautiful example of how someone has looked at this situation and made a positive impact on it. Can you just explain that? Because I think that this could be really relevant to the events world.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously cruising in particular has been one area of tourism that's been particularly damaged. And one of our clients is a cruise business. They've had to cancel everyone's cruises. Effectively, 2020 is looking like a write-off. So we were sort of brainstorming around ideas of what we could do to re-engage the customers who at the moment, let's be honest, are feeling a little bit jaded. They've lost their money, or at least it's been put in a bank somewhere and they haven't got it, and they don't have their cruise either. And I think until all this rolls out, no one's going to have real clarity around what that looks like going forward. So what we decided to do was to make up these little packages and send them out on the day that the people would have departed. And the packages are all bespoke based on the experience that the customer was going to have on the cruise. So depending on where they were going to go, there'd be little elements that were reflective of that. And it was just a simple thing, just saying, we know that you missed your cruise, but we're really looking forward to helping you enjoy another one in 2021. It's just a little friendly touch when the business can't do much else.
Yeah, I absolutely love the idea. CT, would you be able to have a chat about how you think that can go over to the events industry?
Yeah, so I wanted to give it a bit of a spin on the event world and say how could we take that sort of an idea and bring it through? And for us, it's a great opportunity for events and their partners to come together, to be creative and to engage their community, and maybe to gift them something special. And so what if, for instance, we've had maybe a cancelled festival, and we use that as an opportunity, or, on the festival date, the date that it was going to occur, for the festival to arrange, a headline act that was going to play an exclusive set that only the ticket holders could then get to see. And so we want to bring it to life, and we want to give them something special and really turn that around for them. And I think as well, if we take it to the extra mile with that, from the brand partner point of view, and maybe it's multiple brand partners coming together from the festival to put together, a show bag that's delivered to 100 super fans, a VIP experience that they can have at home that gives them, the merch and the VIP tags, and it gives them, maybe some kind of food that you could have and some kind of smell, maybe something sweaty. So you can kind of taste it and feel it and hear it, while they're playing the sets, and, really sort of bring that to life.
Yeah, I think the point is as well that we as an industry are feeling so sad that our events can't go ahead. But there's also people that were going to participate or attend our events, and they're just as sad, you know. And I think that to be able to connect them in that way, and it could be an even more simplified way. I see that Aaron Smith is on. Hi, Aaron. Aaron is actually part of one of the events that we do called the Blood Long Walk, and it could be as simple as we've got people that had signed up to do, for example, the Sunshine Coast event on May the 24th. Now that's not going to happen. The Blood Long Walk's a charity event, so there may not be that spend behind it to do it, but there's nothing to say that we can't put out a post and say, hey, like, we're feeling sad that we're not doing this either. And it might come from the CEO or it might come from the project manager, and say, but, you know, still get out there, still do something, but just to acknowledge that we acknowledge their pain too, but we'll see them later on.
And maybe another example of that I'm just thinking of is we've just had recently our own crew from one of our events, the Bloody Long Walk event, saying that they missed that we're not going to be able to do the start. So does anyone want to do the walk on a certain day? And I'll do the Melbourne one, and you do the Gold Coast one, and I'll do the Sydney one, and we'll do it at the same time, and then we can message each other. And so I think there's opportunities there for the event industry to be able to do a similar kind of ideas.
Yeah, and I think the digital environment provides you an opportunity that probably never before in the past you've had to actually make that happen in a virtual sense, and try and give some people some level of connectivity. I mean, who would have thought that, you know, Optus as a telecommunication brand could engage people in the way that they have with the G'day a Day thing. You do the same thing with the walk, and it doesn't really cost you an enormous amount. I mean, obviously Optus are putting a lot of money behind it, but for you guys and charities, it doesn't have to cost the world.
Yeah. I don't think they did. They just got Daniel Ricciardo to give Scotty James a call.
Friends,
he'd do that any day of the week.
They actually did another one today. They're
just doing it for fun.
Yeah.
They're pretty good.
So one of the, I was going to say one of the, but the biggest event that's had to be cancelled is the Olympics in 2020. And Jen's team, part of that, one of your main focuses was to, you were sponsoring the Tokyo 2020 Games.
Yeah.
So are you able to explain how that commercial agreement has then changed and moved? Because obviously you've got another year, but how has that worked for the event or for the organization? And as I speak,
that is what happened to the event.
Do you want to we'll cross to something else?
It knows every time talking to me.
Oh, are you back? There you are.
Yes,
You're back.
Back here.
I'm back.
Did you hear? Did you hear
like
that
it
question?
hears you say my name, and it around the
like no.
Was that how have we shifted away from the Olympics? What was the?
Well, no, it was
exactly?
more around the effect that it's had on the event organizers and on your sponsorship and on your sponsorship of athletes. And because you've now got an extended year, does that mean that you have to pay for an extra year, or have you now managed to negotiate that? How have you dealt with that relationship? Maybe I keep talking too much.
I think it's a sensitive subject.
It is, Jen. Yeah.
Can you hear?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay, cool. With it being a quadrennial event anyway, the impact of it moving 1 year to the next is not the worst of a year. I think
Jen, I might just switch your video off. We might just stop your video.
I don't think not as cool.
I might just stop your video so that we can hear you a bit better. There we go. Hi, Jen, are you there?
I can hear you guys. Okay, is that a bit better?
Yeah, that's
yeah, that's perfect. Are you guys hearing that?
No.
Okay.
While we're waiting for Jen to come back in there, I had another idea around the previous question anyway, around the example of how this kind of thing could work, and just while we're talking about Olympics, and it's the same thing. I think it's another example could be that key brand could take bring all of their athletes together, or individually around the world, and then on the day of what would have been their event, the day it would have been run in Tokyo in Japan, they could compete for the fastest time, or the fastest, the longest jump, or the highest jump, and they compete for bragging rights, and it allows the fans to be able to still engage with them on that time. And it kind of, it could happen on one day, or it could happen across the whole period that would have been the Olympics. And as an extra sort of added bonus from the brand point of view is, they could, again, same sort of thing, if they wanted to put some money behind it, they could put together some, of the, brands, packs and things that's the ultimate Tokyo kit, and let them feel and experience, what would have been if had they gone there, and to give them a sort of a little bit of a taste of the flavour for the following year, and get them sort of connected together still, and not lose them through to the following year.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Jen.
All right, I think we got Jen.
Oh no.
Yeah, okay.
We got your picture.
Time a video after.
While we try and sort that out, I think an area where, just on that thought, CT, I kind of look at a brand like Optus, who are working with the Olympic team, and okay, you've had this 12-month delay, but I think V8 Supercars has given a real insight that you can have major success with some sort of virtual element. And I think the one element that I thought was missing from Supercars was, because you're not actually in a physical race car, they could have had people from outside of the sport, guys that are already involved in those esports, participate against them. And so for Optus, there may be an opportunity to leverage some of the existing esports and create a small mini Olympics that runs during the same period. As we've seen from Supercars, the ratings have been fairly good, and I noticed that Formula One driver Max Verstappen participated last night.
Yeah, which is big. Yeah,
that was great.
Reviews. It's quite a coup, for Red Bull to bring him in for sure.
Yeah.
Am I with you guys?
Yes. You are. Yay! Hello. Yay, we can hear you.
No, I think that Supercars example is a really strong one. I think the challenge with Olympics, I think the opportunity for Olympics is everyone has a really long run at it now. I think, yes, we all feel sorry for the athletes, but all the athletes very much take it in perspective and realize, they are not in the worst position. They have an extra year to train, and all the athletes in the world are in the same boat. I think that period when the IOC and Japanese government were debating was obviously quite tense for everybody, and I actually applaud the Australian team for just putting their hands up and saying no when they said no before that official call was made. I think everyone was very much behind that, and the sentiment was, and the brands were really brought on that journey. So we're all there together. All of their brands have stood by them, and actually, if anything, then working together more than ever. So we're all now talking about how can we collectively celebrate what would have been the Olympics, but keep that story going, keep people interested in the journey of those athletes. How are those athletes dealing with that, setback? And then I think there's this online opportunity as well, which is something we are looking at. So we've had a program in market with the Olympic Committee for over a year now, which is all around teaching hard to teach topics to kids. So stories of resilience, of commitment, of teamwork, of overcoming challenges, everything that people need right now. And those are kind of those qualities of the Olympic spirit. So what we're looking at doing is transitioning that online and broadening the reach as far as we can, because not only does it help parents with kids stuck at home, schools trying to teach kids, remotely. It also helps the athletes, and it gives them some structure, and it gives them time to, develop their storytelling skills whilst they have this period of downtime, and gives them some structure in their day. So we're super excited to get that off the ground. It's obviously school holidays at the moment, and we'll be looking to push that out next term. But I think you're exactly right. It's how do the brands come together, and how do we keep that story moving on that journey to what will now be the Tokyo 2020, but in 21 games.
Are they going to still call it that?
Still called Tokyo 2020. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, all the merchandise is made.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They're everywhere. So
so the AOC, how did they manage that with you in your commercial agreement? It is all about relationships, and do they have a great relationship with their sponsors, and then that has flowed through, and you're now seeing the effects of your collaborating together?
Yeah, I think so. Commercially, there's no major impact, to be honest. I think any sponsor, once you've got 3 years out of 4, you wouldn't leave in the 4th year. So we're in a longer term partnership anyway, so there's no impact. But if it was over at the end of Tokyo, I think everyone would stand by them. I think you come on this journey so far that everybody is almost closer together now. But I think there are things to be learned in terms of commercial agreements, definitely. I mean, it's probably a discussion for another time, but what we've all learned about the gaps and the holes in commercial agreements when things like this and unprecedented situations come up is incredible. So I do see the future of that changing quite significantly. But no, in the short term, we're absolutely standing by all of our partners and trying to be there. They're having a much harder time than we are, I guess, right now. And trying to do the right thing and actually be a good partner and be a good corporate citizen, and that's the beauty of the strong relationships that we've built.
And so with that relationship, or with that in mind, and with you look after a whole portfolio, or you and your team do, what do you think are going to be the challenges for brands and events that will need to be overcome in the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, I think your 12 to 18 month point is the key one there. We haven't seen that many brands walk. I mean, events as standalone events is slightly different. So I guess I'm answering your question in terms of all kind of brand rights holder relationships, partnerships. But I think in the short term, over the next 6 months, strong relationships will get you through that, and people will work together and they will support each other. At least from my perspective and what I'm seeing with our partners and the other brands that they work with. I think the 12 to 18 month time frame is the challenge, because that's where people don't all stay in the same roles. Organizations are going to be hurting if we do end up going into recession. And I think at that point in time, it's real the sustainable commercial outcomes of the partnership that are going to survive. So I think the best, or at least the way I'm approaching it with my guys and the partners that we work with, is we're doing the right thing now. But once we do settle into a bit of a norm, it's all about let's get together and let's work out what the long-term future of this partnership looks like, because we need to make sure it's delivering successfully in the long run, to protect that partnership and get the most out of it.
Yeah, and make sure that it's got a solid foundation to go on and have long-term relationships out of that.
Yeah, and that it's not seen as a luxury, because I think big brands and big organizations do ride a bit of a wave, and when things are good, they tend to spend on events and partnerships and sponsorships, and when the purse strings are pulled, they're one of the first things to go, and you don't want that to be the case. But I think if you build really sustainable partnerships that deliver against your kind of core business objectives, then that won't be the case.
I think one of the greatest challenges that the entire event space, and you could even argue that the business space, is going to face, is that we're very focused right now on getting through what we're going through. Then we're going to have this massive push of reignited effort when we come out of it, because you guys are going to have 3,000 events all in the space of 3 months, and everyone's going to be, winning and grinning and all that sort of stuff. But if you think about the normal process of events planning and partnership building, the stuff that should be happening 12 or 18 months down the track should be starting now, and none of that is really going to be happening. So I think one of the greatest challenges that businesses and events are going to have is that they need to sort of start thinking about those things now, to either extend those partnerships with partners like Optus so that they go on for a lot longer, or to be looking at what the opportunities are given the market is going to be different.
Yeah. I think if you like thinking about it from the events point of view, obviously in terms of challenges over the next sort of 12 to 18 months, obviously the initial challenges you're talking about, social distancing and the unfolding of how those laws are going to sort of unfold in their slow and, probably the way they folded up kind of way to start with. But then, you're talking about massive numbers of events that will come through. So that event overcrowding and date clashes and things, that we're going to have a year's worth of events diving into 3 or 4 months in the back end of the year. We're already seeing issues with that sort of thing around there. We touched on this last week, particularly with Jeff from TEG, is that, international events and athletes and artists, going to have issues with them being able to travel out to here. But then, we also talked about that being an opportunity, and I think we'll touch on that a bit later as well. But we also, some of the other challenges we talked about is the potential to having to look at dropping prices or, being able to meet the market because of the recession and because of this mass, number of events, and probably potential for smaller numbers of participants. So, there's sort of, people having to choose maybe from one event or another because they potentially can't afford or they can't do it at the same day. So, from an events point of view, there are certainly some things there. There's definitely a lot of positives to come out, but just sort of focusing on the challenges that might be there on the event side.
I think it's interesting, and I think for a brand as well, it's probably going to be less about badging a huge event just for the eyeballs, and more about how can you actually facilitate that event happening, or take it to a specific region that really wants that event, or make it more accessible so more people can get to it. I think there's probably a more meaningful role there for brands to play.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Michael, you wrote a really good article a couple of weeks ago that I thoroughly enjoyed. It was part of your Remember Creative newsletter. And one of the points was local will become a valuable commodity. And I think we're touching on that with the fact that we may not have access to international suppliers or to international acts or to international athletes. Can you expand on what you meant by local will become a valuable commodity?
For sure. Yeah, look, I think in some ways it ties into what we're talking about here right now. And obviously you alluded to it a moment ago, where we're not going to have access to international acts, etc. I think COVID-19 has presented us with a really strange silver lining. And that is that in a globalized world where we've become very focused on global entities, we're being forced back into our communities. We're being forced to nurture them. So from a digital point of view, at a business level, this is the time to do the same thing, to nurture your community. And I think from an events point of view, you were talking earlier, Hayley, about, this is a chance for domestic artists. If I was a domestic artist right now, I'd be ringing every events company I could. I'd be thinking about how I could get, my face up there, because this is the moment. You're not going to get this again for a really long time. And for someone like Optus or any business of that sort, there's a real opportunity, perhaps very different from what they've had in the past, where it's all been about eyeballs. Now it's about, we've got some social currency by supporting and partnering with these events.
Yeah, cool. I absolutely agree on artists, local artists, and not just, I'm not talking about purely local in one area, but Australian artists have an opportunity to be the headline acts and to be that pool, because people are going to want to go out.
Yeah.
So one question that we had in, which was sparked from the G'day Day campaign, was what other events and campaigns have you've seen that have sparked excitement about what the future might hold? Jen, can I go to you for that one?
Yeah, of course. I think events still, I think they're still bubbling along. I think we're yet to see anything really massive in that space. The one that I'm finding really interesting is there's a lot of case studies out there of, I mean, you'll all have seen them, the boutique alcohol brands that have flipped into producing hand sanitizer, or the, you know, clothing brands that have flipped into face masks. I think for some SMBs which are maybe, you know, early in their life cycle, this could be a complete shift in what their business ends up being in the long run. And I think that's really interesting. And I think particularly there'll be some interesting things around the luxury brands as well, if this does turn into a longer term, you know, economic downturn.
Yeah,
how they will, you know, deal with that. And it's a lot of those kind of mid-luxury brands that are sponsors in this space as well. So I think that will be a really interesting one to watch. I mean, not necessarily a campaign, but a comment. From a campaign point of view, I mentioned this one earlier. It's not that innovative or incredible, but I just love it. There's a piece from what are they called? Support Act, and they're supporting the Australian music industry. And they're running a TVC at the moment, and it just tugs the heartstrings, and it's so uplifting. It's so beautiful. And it's that really simple Zoom call of lots of different artists singing a song, but the meaning behind it is let's support everyone in the industry. That probably is the front runner for me at the moment, because I just, you know, it really nails the point that it's not just the artists and the headline acts suffering here. There is a whole industry of people. It gives people something to do to support them. There's a call to action there. It's really simple. It's really clean. Yeah. You know, aside from my own campaign,
well,
that
was great.
That's the front runner for me at the moment.
Yeah. Well, we will get that link for that, and we'll put it on our Facebook group later on.
Yeah, nice.
Guys, anyone up next?
I really loved the BCF camping at home concept that they brought out for one weekend. I thought that was just fantastic. I thought it brought the true brand value to life, and it showcased that their products and the whole experience didn't need to be somewhere else. I just thought that was really clever, and I suspect that they will leverage that as time goes on.
And you know what? They could make that campaign into an event at a later time, or partner with a festival, or, you know,
couldn't agree more.
So many opportunities for them to take that into live and take it into all these families camping out later on.
Yeah, look, we touched on this in a conversation we had, Hayley, but I think this is going to be a vital part of what brands need to do. I think if you think about the fact that we're all in isolation, events, for my mind, are going to be super vital when we come out of isolation. For brands to engage in small events, not necessarily massive ones, that tie in all of these little campaigns that they're doing along the way and say, well, now that you're out, come and be with us, reconnect with us as people. Yeah. Because everything at the moment, just as we are now, is all digital. And that's great. But how nice will it be when we can all sit in a room and do this?
I know, I just want to hug sometimes.
Yeah. That's what's going to happen. They're going, you know, brands are going to have to embrace their customers in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we touched on that, didn't we? Like it's you know, people more than ever right now, people, you know, are craving connection. You know, right now we're able to do it, you know, through the powers of the universe and in the internet, which is fantastic. And I can't imagine, you know, not having this at the moment. But you know, like it's something that we're definitely craving, and so as soon as we're able to do that, we're certainly going to see people going back out. It's not going to be, you know, certainly not going to be the end of live events. Some of the things that I've seen that I had down that I've been having a bit of a look at was a really good one from Ocean and Earth and the Surfing New South Wales with their junior surf titles. And what they've done is they're just starting it. It's just about to launch, and it's a surfing competition for juniors where they can upload their footage, and they will be judged by a panel of judges, and the competition is won that way. So it was a really clever kind of way of using some technology to sort of to bring the two together. And it was really quick to sort of bring that one through. Also, may have seen May 50K with a MS fundraiser. That's a walk, run, virtual challenge that people can be a part of through May, which is really clever. Also, we've been having a look at, there's another one called the Conqueror, which is like a world challenge. So people can do their walk and their run or their cycle of famous routes, and then they get sent out their official medal from that route. So, which is really, it's a really clever way to sort of jump on that in that space right now. And then we touched on this before, but I had down as well the Red Bull's move to have Max Verstappen driving in the V8s in the E Series overnight last night, which was, I think, a masterstroke. And I reckon the ratings, I haven't looked at it today, but I think the ratings would have been through the roof last night. And it really added to it. We talked about this last week, as that E Series and things is not going to take over from things later on. But for now, this is what we have, and it was fantastic to be able to do that across there.
Well, you look at the ocean and earth thing. I mean, has the potential to unearth some unknown talent.
Absolutely.
There's a real opportunity at this time.
Yeah, and also I think all of these examples can go into a live event or a hybrid of the two at a later stage. Yeah. I was I'm sure many of you have seen, there is quite a few hackathons going on at the moment. And I was facilitating, it was the Global Sustainability Event Alliance this morning. And it was absolutely fascinating that 500 event professionals from around the world all got together. And then we were like, well, what is the opportunity here? And the opportunity is, in 6 months' time, the people from Australia could get together, right? Or in 12 months' time, they could actually make it a global event where people finally do get together, or, because it's sustainable, we might not want to travel that much. But there's opportunity for all of these events that are starting online to then have some sort of hybrid mix, or go completely live, or stay digital. But this it's all an opportunity, I think.
I think the opportunity is you got to close the loop, don't you? You're creating these opportunities now, but you got to follow them up.
Yeah, the consumer journey is really important for sure.
Yeah. Guys, we are going to go over just by 5 or 10 minutes tonight because of our technical glitch at the beginning. So please bear with us. Otherwise, we will put it onto our Facebook group later on today. So can I just ask Jen, what are your thoughts on how brands and events will interact in the future? That's a big
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, and it's obviously kind of the $1 million question, I guess, because we just don't know what that landscape is going to look like. But I think, building on what the guys were just saying there, that craving to get out and see your friends and your family again, I think they're the first people you're going to crave seeing. It's the people in your community that you want to spend time with. I'm not craving right now going to a stadium gig with 60,000 people I don't know. And I think they're for the brand play. And I guess we've also been through the drought season, and we've had the bushfires. And what we saw from a brand point of view there was loads of brands getting into the local communities to help, and to put on fundraisers in local communities, and to put on, small concerts. I actually think there's a real opportunity there, and I've seen it more this year than ever. I think the first phase, I guess, coming out of this, where we're allowed to socialize and do events again, but only on a small scale, that for me seemed like the place a lot of brands are going to go, demonstrating their commitment to communities and coming back. I think you'll then have the novelty factor when major events are back, and I guess they'll become the hot property when your big international global events come back again. But like we say, it's so difficult, isn't it, to see much further than a few months ahead at the moment.
No one has a crystal ball.
Yeah.
It's just good to hear, other people's opinions.
Absolutely.
We've got a question from Sam. Being remote has suddenly evaporated. How much of the hybrid model, digital and physical experiences, will be part of the new normal post the lights back on phase? Now, we actually did touch on this a bit last week, and so I might get you to expand, CT, on, I suppose, the thoughts around
stages or something.
Yeah, the stages and unfolding from social distancing and what that might look like.
Yeah. Look, I think as Hales was saying, we have touched on it before, but I guess what we can expect of the stages of things unfolding is in a lot of ways is in how it folded up in the first place, but it folded up very quickly. It is going to be a much longer period of unfolding, but from that, we can go from things happening behind closed doors and non-spectator special projects and filming projects and things such as we've done in the past. So I think that's what we're going to see sort of happen first. Then events with small numbers, and also within those events is probably events that are a little bit sort of flexible and can go off in small waves or potentially not even waves, and people being very spaced out, and social distancing ideas and thoughts and things that we've now learnt will be a part of how people are interacting in those initial events as well. And then obviously we're going to go into sort of, medium-sized or slightly bigger, maybe 500 people events, with obviously still the social distancing, then medium and large events, and then back to full. And probably the last thing that we're going to see here in the staging is going to be the international events with the international athletes and the international artists and that sort of thing. I think we're also within it, we're going to see in those early phases, we're going to see this mix, or the hybrid, as Sam was saying, of events that are part live, part they're offline and live, or online. So we have that sort of hybrid going on, and it'll be really interesting. And I think we've talked about it before, and in that, if we can take this as an opportunity, and what's exciting is that there might be some really fantastic, innovative ideas that's going to come out of this. And let's hope that we've seen some things already, and I think as people continue on down the line, we're going to see people being clever and ideas coming through and technology coming into it, and those coming back together with the live experience.
I agree. I think just to, I guess, build on that. Sorry, Michael, do you want to go?
No, you go.
From our point of view, I mean, as I was mentioning before, our team look after all of our sports, entertainment, music properties. So, very much tools down at the moment. The one thing we are continuing to work on is the tech. That work, was always happening remotely anyway. What does the likes of, and can be slightly controversial at times, but what does the likes of a 5G network do to a live event experience, to a stadium experience? What's the connected stadium experience? What's the second screen experience? So those things are very much still moving. Events do come back. Absolutely. I think we'll see quite a lot of new tech rolling out for that experience.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the other thing is that from a brand point of view, but also from an events perspective, the really big opportunity here is we're going to unfold in the way that we folded in, which is what you alluded to, CT. This is the chance to engage your genuine fans. I mean, to really pull them in, because you're not going to be allowed to have the numbers that you had in before this all went down, at least initially. So get those guys and really nurture them, because they're going to tell your story. They're going to communicate it. They're going to amplify it, whether you're a brand or the event itself. And so I think if you can sort of focus in on those guys, it'd be really valuable at this time.
Yeah, agreed.
Awesome. Well, I think that takes us, thank you, Sam. Sam says thank you. Exciting times ahead. It certainly is. That takes us to the end of our PanelCast. So thank you so much, Jen. Thank you, Michael. Thanks, CT.
Thank you for having us.
So just to let you guys know, we will be putting this up on our Facebook group the Shift PanelCast, so please feel free to join us over there. We do want to get as many people involved in this and make this a positive movement to our industry. So please pay it forward. Please let people know if you've got ideas for panelists, if you want to get in touch with us. My email address is Hailey, Hailey, at project9events.com.au, or you can contact Chris at project9events.com.au. And otherwise, we will see you next week.
Yeah, we might send out some super fan packs for the live experience.
Yeah, so we'll be sending out an email. We'll let you know on Facebook what our topics are going to be for next week. We're looking towards speaking to, we think the next development step will be about events and brand purpose. So we're going to be talking about that in the coming weeks. Cool. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Sorry about the technical glitches before.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Thanks, Jen and Michael, for your time.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.